Hi, this is Stephen, and this is Astro Indicator Update, Excursions into Practical Astrology, and this is episode 41. And today's date is Sunday, May 31st. Today we're looking at an update of the U.S. astrology, its transits, progressions, just a reminder of what is going on and how long this will last. In addition, we'll look at the astrology of some markets, New York Stock Exchange, the Dow Jones, gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the US dollar. Okay, what's going on? Well, if you've been following me and listened to my previous, going all the way back to December, in December I actually had a name of a video that was something like, something big is happening in January. And, because it's very obvious when you look at the transits to the U.S. chart. So as a review, this is the inner circle here is the natal chart for the U.S. Here, it's up here, 1776. At least this is the chart that I use with a 7-degree Sagittarius ascendant. In the outer ring are the positions of the planets as they are right now. And that's what you call transits. One way of getting an idea of, the quality, the character of the current time period. And you can look ahead with transits. But the big thing that's going on, the overriding thing that's going on in the U.S. and seems to be affecting the world is that we have a Pluto transit. Here's Pluto right there where my cursor is. And it is opposite. The USA Mercury, and it's going to be that way for basically another year, okay? And it is usually associated on the personal level with a sense of crisis or loss, a dark period of time. It's very challenging. And now that we have it, we notice that it is aspecting the USA Mercury. We can start to become more detailed in what areas this crisis will occur and, again, how long it will last. And so Mercury deals with a lot of things. It deals with communication, the media, education, transportation, the mental psyche of a nation. So things are sort of, apparently coming undone on a lot of different levels. And it seems like a life and death situation, or has for a period of time. We are uncovering greater and greater information about the situation, though, learning more about it, a Mercury function. And this is, everything else I have to say falls under the umbrella of this Pluto transit, which again is lasting a good while. Other things that Pluto are related to deal with manipulation, behind the scenes tactics to gain control or power, subversion, covert activities, secret organizations. These things all have associations, particularly on a collective level, statewide level, when it comes to Pluto. So, like a number of people, I don't know exactly what's going on. But in the mix, we have to be very watchful and diligent in revealing or discovering if there are covert activities happening in our world related to whatever, okay? And in addition, Pluto deals with, just generally speaking, aside from crisis or manipulation, it deals with power. So very likely there is a power struggle going on for control, and it is expressing itself, in my estimation here, it is expressing itself most directly through the media, okay? Is there anything positive here? Let's just jump to that topic. Yes, there is something positive, because Pluto can deal with transformation that potentially, in the end, brings about some healing and some discovery of let's say, dark issues that need to be purged or need to be eliminated. Okay? So there is potential in the long run for this to have a positive outcome. However, I think we're in the middle of it. We're in the thick of it, of this crisis. And people, I think education on the personal level is one, proactive thing that we can do. And there's all types of, information out on the internet. A person just has to use their, rationality and connect their own dots, share information with their friends to try to figure out and discover, the underlying truth of what's taking place. But we are in the middle of it. So let's zoom in a little bit more. What's happening more precisely under this umbrella? Well, we just had, about a week ago, we had a Venus. Here's Venus over here, transiting, and it's started to go retrograde. Well, this retrograde station, you see 15 degrees, that's where it is now. But this retrograde station started about a week ago and was conjunct the natal Mars of the U.S. Let me see if I can draw something in here. So essentially, right a week ago, we had a conjunction of Venus and Mars. And because that conjunction was also a station where the planet appears to be going backwards now, that energy, that combination kind of there's a continuation of it into the future because of the conjunction. Well, this deals with struggle and strife and conflict and disruption on the kind of a social level. And so we're seeing this. Is this going to abate? Is it going to get better? Yes, it's going to get better. But it was particularly pronounced over this last week. Okay? This is what I'm saying. Venus station on Mars up here. Let's continue. Another long-standing transit that the U.S. is dealing with is this one right here. And this is the transit of Uranus right here at 8 degrees Taurus, is 150 degrees from the ascendant. And so that's a key aspect, a key degree that forces a blending of these two elements. And when you try to blend the ascendant with this energy of Uranus, you often get sort of a real focus on freedom and what that really means at the individual and the collective level. This can be a revolutionary, rebellious, there's elements of that within Uranus, which we're seeing right now, even though it's mixed in with a lot of other things. But let's just summarize it, say, there's a focus and hopefully an advancement or a clarification of what freedom means in a society. Okay? Let's continue. Also, this video will be too long. Saturn, in addition, is conjunct Venus. I'll draw that in. Okay, Saturn by transit's at 1 degree. It wasn't exact when it's stationed, maybe 2 weeks back, but it was close enough. It was 150 to Venus. So again, it hit a certain degree in its transiting movement that calls upon and represents certain dynamic between these two energies. And this is, to me, more related to the economic situation. And I think on the collective level, this could be where we see states possibly wanting more control over tracking money, for example. They may want to go to a digitized form of currency where they could track it very easily. Saturn deals with control. Venus deals with money. It's one meaning for Venus. So watch out for that, but also just the economic downturn that we're currently experiencing. Let's end on a positive note, which will carry into the next one. But also we see, in addition to Pluto opposite Mercury, Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter is right here, and it is just within the next month, it will be moving back to 24 degrees, and it will conjoin Pluto and exactly be opposite Mercury. Let's just look at that chart right now and get an idea, because that, I think, is going to at least mitigate things a little bit when that happens. So here we're a month ahead now. Jupiter, that little symbol right there, has been apparently moving backwards from the Earth standpoint. It is now at 24 degrees like Pluto. In a month, it will be opposite Mercury. Well, just as a ballpark figure, about 80% of the time when Jupiter comes along, it usually brings about some degree of, positivity to a situation. A little bit more confidence enters the scene. Something good happens. That's, it can just inflame and exaggerate the situation. There is that possibility. It can just make things maybe even worse, okay? But most of the time, let's just say 80% of the time, it brings in something positive where there is a respite from the situation, cooler heads start prevailing, people get on the right track, they feel more faith and confidence and so forth. So I see that happening in a month, okay? We need to get through this period, and I think in a month things will settle down. In addition, we see that Venus, which had been going retrograde, now it's going to be direct in a month, but Venus, approximately a month from now, is now opposite the ascendant. And this also brings in maybe a little more harmony to the world, to the collective. And so, personally, I see that as being, sort of a positive development as well. And I may be stretching it here, but we have the retrogradation of Saturn is moved just a little bit further away from being an aspect with Venus, this business that I was talking about in the last. Oops, that didn't work out very well. Let's try it this way. It's just not quite as exact in a month. So, there are signs that things might be a little bit better, but let me just emphasize that Pluto is still exactly opposite Mercury. And on top of that, just for a few days, right around the 4th of July, for several days, we're going to have Mars squaring Venus, okay? So somewhat of a mixed bag. I have a feeling, though, that as Jupiter comes back in a month, things may have settled down. A little bit more of a positive tone will have sort of entered the news. So let's watch out for that. So that's my update. I'll keep you posted maybe in another few months. Oh, I have one more page here. Excuse me. One more page on the USA. This is the progress chart. And I don't want to be, Mr. Downer, but this has got a mixed picture as well. And the primary concern is every 30 years we have on the progress chart, which is another way of defining the current period. I won't go into how it's calculated, but in the progress chart you see the moon, which generally speaking takes about 30 years to go around the progressed chart. It is approaching Pluto, okay? And this will happen in about 5-6 months, right around the election. Okay? And, so there could be even more intensity happening in the world. And we'll just have to see how it shakes out. On the positive side, if I can look for that, we have the sun at 15 degrees. It'll still be at 15 degrees, and it will be in trine with Jupiter. So at the center of things, there is going to be some hope of surviving the situation and maybe coming out and seeing a light at the end of the tunnel and how things could possibly get better. We have that potential mixed in with all this turmoil. Let's just leave it at that. So I'm going to leave it at that. We have many challenges that are going to last several years, particularly economically. And so people just need to do what they can to become as, self-sufficient, as, I don't know what, just they may have to use a little extra, discipline to deal with their expenses, to deal with their debt, to come out the other side. And it's just the nature of the period that we're going through is that we're dealing with, social and economic kind of crises at the same time. So anyway, but there is some hope that at the end of the day, we will have transformed into, sort of a better form of society. At least in the cards, that's what I see. So let's look at some charts here. Here's the Dow Jones Industrials. About, a couple weeks ago, on May 17th, I brought this up last week. There was a very bullish indicator. It happened on a Sunday. It showed up in the futures market. Again, I combine astrology with technical analysis. The astrology here is represented by these vertical lines. They're specific for each market. The technical analysis deals with support and resistance areas, moving averages, what you see here. These lines are support and resistance areas that I've drawn in. We have momentum indicators down below. When it gets up here, it's overbought, oversold, so forth. Well, let's look at the astrology. The astrology came up 2 weeks ago. Was very bullish, something that doesn't happen that often, maybe every 6 months or so. And I wasn't quite sure if it was going to show up on Monday. It did. We had an 800-point pop. We got up into this channel. It broke through this horizontal resistance area and then went right up to the next resistance area. And now we're 2 weeks away from that very bullish date. It may be wearing off somewhat. There has not been other astrological dates in between, and we don't have one until we get to June 5th. And June 5th, I don't say it's excessively bullish in any respect. It's a key date, but not excessively so. So at this point, this energy could be waning. Again, that green line, which is a trend line, kind of a neckline almost, is key. If we break down below that, we may start drifting down to these other support areas. Primarily, I say this because we are getting further and further away from this date. Okay? So that's basically all I have to say about the Dow. Let me look at my notes. And let's look at gold for a second. Well, gold has a big date tomorrow. And we'll see what happens because I try to combine the technicals, the astrology, and the fundamental situation that this particular market, finds itself in. And when there's a lot of uncertainty, lack of confidence, a little bit of chaos in the world, usually people look to gold. So the fundamentals are very strong for gold, financially, socially, etc. Okay, having said that, tomorrow, this line right there, historically is not a very supportive, bullish energy for gold. So if we traded down, to this line right there, that wouldn't surprise me at all. However, the fundamentals, what's going on in the world, socially, the riots, etc., may just override the astrology here. So when you're faced with that situation, you want to figure out what to do. I fall back on the technical parameters that I've drawn in, support and resistance. I play the technicals. I have the astrology in my back of my mind, but I'm emphasizing the technicals. Now, looking ahead, this is sort of a more bullish date, June 5th. And then we've got a real dry spell of, astrological energy. So normally when that happens, you see a market, if everything else is strong, you see a market kind of trade sideways. Gold is much stronger from an astrological viewpoint in July, okay? But a lot can happen between now and July, so, it pays to understand the technical dynamics and how traders and computers, the algorithms, use those inputs. Okay, let's look ahead. Let's look at silver. Big day for silver on Friday, okay? It wasn't the longest channel in the world, but it had been trading between these two levels for a couple weeks. It blew through this level on Friday and went right up, as markets often do, right up to that next resistance level. So let me look at my notes here. So this was a very rare date. It changed the direction of the market. It had been drifting lower. We got a big boost out of it. This also, in a couple days, on June 3rd, is another very strong date. I'm going to combine the astrology with the technicals. If we break through this level right here, we're going higher. And if silver does that, it's very likely to influence the gold market, and gold will be, at the very minimum, supported and will probably, follow suit. So we'll have to see. We'll see have to see it plays out. But if we get above this level, we could definitely head higher. So let's move on. Let's look at Bitcoin. So, Bitcoin had, back on the 24th, it had a very strong day of volatility. The dynamic on the astrological level is just, that's the baseline thing, is you're just going to see a lot of volatility. And we zoomed down to a support level, and then we started bouncing off of it. And let's see, the next key date that we have, and so right now we're going to look at Ethereum in a second. Ethereum's chart has been very strong over the weekend. So it would not surprise me if on Monday we break this downtrend line, mostly because of the interplay between these two markets. The astrology really isn't there for Bitcoin to do that. It's more likely to kick in out here on June 10th. So again, we're going to play both. The astrology isn't there, but Bitcoin may just ride the coattails of Ethereum a little bit. If it gets above this trend line, traders are going to say this is a very bullish market, and they may just buy it up until this next level. Like gold, Bitcoin's astrology is stronger in July. I've said that several weeks now, but that's just the reality. So we'll see how it goes, but I see mostly a continuation in this market to the upside. Okay, this is what's happened this weekend in Ethereum. This was Saturday. Sunday, it's trading just down a little bit, but we broke. This has been a long pattern was forming. It could be construed as a head and shoulders, a bullish wedge pattern. But from, anybody who studies technical analysis, when it broke through on, Thursday, Friday, it was going higher. And I wouldn't be surprised if we continue at least up to this channel line. That's just how it goes. Even though, we don't have a lot of other supportive astrology taking place. I'm just curious to look back in my notes. So on the 26th of May, it just bounced there. And it is a fairly rare aspect that took place on that day. It sort of surprised me a little bit, I would have to say, that it was as strong as it was. But again, there's a lot of activity going on in cryptocurrencies right now, even in the altcoin market. I'm not promoting these coins, but we've got a number of coins that have just exploded over the last few weeks and are up 300%. Some of them are pulling back now. Altcoins are very volatile. You have to be prepared to lose some money that you can afford to lose if you get into altcoins versus Bitcoin and Ethereum, let's say. But some of that hyper volatility and bullishness in VeChain, Theta, etc., I think has carried over into Ethereum and may have played a part in this run-up, which I think is going to, again, as I said, influence Bitcoin over the next couple days. So finally, let's look at the US dollar, because I think the US dollar had something interesting happening to it. Let me get into my notes here. And because on Monday, Tuesday, there's just a lot of things happening in the dollar. I mean, the dollar had a very strong day on Wednesday, I think it was the 27th. Was that Wednesday? I marked it down. It was Wednesday. And so this movement didn't surprise me, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens on June 2nd, because historically this has very strong bullish energy on June 2nd. So, even though it's not a precise inverse relationship with the precious metals and gold on a daily basis, it could reflect some downturn in gold because the dollar has such strong energy right here. So we'll see how it plays out. Again, it's come down to this support line, and just on that basis, we might get a little bounce. But the fundamentals for the US dollar are not good, particularly over the next few years. So we'll just see how it goes. It may just end up trading sideways. So that's it for today. My name is Stephen. I've been researching financial astrology for 20 years. I have a master's degree in psychology. I'm definitely in this world that we live in. I'm a hard money and cryptocurrency advocate. If you have a question, that's my email. I accept Bitcoin donations, and if you like this video, please like it or hit the subscribe button as well if you want to be notified. I usually do this on a weekly basis. But thanks for listening, and bye for now.